Hi there, welcome to Hevo. In this video, we'll understand what headers and query parameters are and configure them for your REST API source. Before we begin, ensure that you are on the REST API source configuration page in Hevo and have configured any earlier steps based on your source API's requirements. Let's begin with headers. Headers provide additional information about the request sent to the source API. They help the API understand how to process your request. Headers are added as key value pairs. For example, many APIs require a content type header. In this case, content type is the key, and application/JSON can be the value. Some APIs may require additional headers. Refer to your source API documentation to identify the required headers. Now, let's see how to configure headers for your REST API source. In the REST API source configuration, click the Headers tab. Enter the key and the value in the respective fields. You can provide multiple key value pairs if your API requires more than one header. To remove a header, click the delete icon. Now let's look at query parameters. Query parameters control what data the API returns. They are usually used to filter results, limit the number of records, and fetch data from a specific time period. For example, if an API returns only one record by default, you can add a parameter like limit equals 10 to return 10 records instead. Now, let's see how to configure query parameters for your REST API source. In the REST API source configuration, click the Query Params tab. Hevo supports two types of query parameters, text and date. First, let's talk about text. Use text when the value remains the same across requests. Provide the key and the value as required by your API. For example, to return 10 records per request, you can use limit as the key and 10 as the value. Now, let's talk about date. Use date when the API expects a date or time value. Provide the key and select the required date format. You can also define the offset unit and the offset value. These settings tell Hevo how to calculate the date dynamically when the request is sent. If no offset is set, Hevo uses the current date and time. A negative offset generates a date before the request time. A positive offset generates a date after the request time. For example, if you set the offset unit to hours and the offset value to -24, Hevo generates a date that is 24 hours before the request time. This allows the API to return records created or updated within the past 24 hours. Similarly, if you set the offset value to 24, Hevo generates a date that is 24 hours after the request time. This can be used to retrieve records such as upcoming events within the next 24 hours. Important point to note, incorrect parameters may cause the request to fail or return unexpected results. So always refer to the source API documentation when adding headers or query parameters. Once configured, Hevo applies these headers and query parameters to every pipeline run. To learn more or explore other features in Hevo, visit docs.hevodata.com. Thanks for watching.